Every day, around the same time, something strange would happen at Doris's food shop. A man in a wheelchair would come rolling slowly down the road. The wheelchair was very old and looked like it might break at any moment. One of the wheels was bent and made a loud squeaking sound as it rolled over the stones on the ground. Creak, creak, creak. That was the sound people would hear when the man was coming. The man looked very poor and sick. His legs were wrapped in dirty bandages that looked like they had not been changed in a long time. Hi friends, welcome to Tales by Lucy. Please subscribe to this channel and turn on notification as it will make me happy to bring more exciting and emotional stories like this for you. So let's get into the story. Doris was a young woman who lived in Texas, USA. She was only 24 years old, but life had already been very hard for her. Every morning, she would wake up before the sun came up to start her day. She had a small food shop by the side of the road where she sold rice, beans, and yam to people who were hungry. Her food shop was not fancy at all. It was made from old wooden boards and pieces of metal sheets. She had built it under a big tree so that customers could sit in the shade while they ate. The tree also protected her from the hot sun and the rain. Doris did not have much money. Her shoes were old and worn out. There were holes in them, and sometimes water would get inside when it rained. Her clothes were also old and had patches sewn on them where they had torn. But despite all this, Doris always had a smile on her face. "Good afternoon, sir. You are welcome," she would say to every person who came to buy food from her. Even when she was very tired from working all day, she would still greet people with kindness and respect. Every morning, Doris would wake up at 4 o'clock. She would light her small stove and start cooking. She would wash the rice carefully, cut up vegetables, and cook everything slowly so it would taste good. Her hands worked very fast because she had been doing this for many years. But inside her heart, she often felt sad and lonely. Doris had no family left. Her mother and father had died when she was still young, and she had no brothers or sisters. She lived all alone in a small room behind her food shop. The room was very simple. There was no electricity, so she used candles when it got dark. There was no running water, so she had to carry water from far away in big containers. But even though she had very little, Doris never gave up hope that her life would get better someday. One hot afternoon, while Doris was cleaning her wooden table and getting ready to serve lunch, her friend Mama Ruth walked by. Mama Ruth sold vegetables from a small table not far from Doris's food shop. She had known Doris for a long time and often wondered about something. "Doris," Mama Ruth said, stopping in front of the food shop, "I have a question for you." "Yes, Mama Ruth." "What is it?" Doris replied, looking up from her work. "Why are you always smiling? I see you every day, and you are always happy. But you are struggling just like the rest of us. You don't have much money. Your clothes are old. You work very hard every day, so why do you always look so cheerful?" Doris stopped what she was doing and thought about the question for a moment. Then she smiled again and said, "Mama Ruth, I smile because crying will not put food in my pot. If I spend my time feeling sorry for myself, it will not make my life better. But if I stay happy and work hard, maybe good things will come to me." Mama Ruth laughed and shook her head. "You are a strange girl, Doris, but I hope you are right." Then she walked away to go back to her vegetable stand. But Mama Ruth's words stayed in Doris's mind. It was true that she did not have much. Sometimes she did not have enough money to buy new clothes or to fix her room. Sometimes she was so hungry that her stomach would make noise, but she would give her food to customers instead of eating it herself. Still, she believed that being kind to people was the right thing to do. Every day, around the same time, something strange would happen at Doris's food shop. A man in a wheelchair would come rolling slowly down the road. The wheelchair was very old and looked like it might break at any moment. One of the wheels was bent and made a loud squeaking sound as it rolled over the stones on the ground. Creak, creak, creak. That was the sound people would hear when the man was coming. The man looked very poor and sick. His legs were wrapped in dirty bandages that looked like they had not been changed in a long time. His pants were torn at the knees, and you could see his skin through the holes. His face was covered with dust and dirt, and his hair was messy and uncombed. His eyes always looked very tired, like he had not slept in many days. When people saw this man coming, they would do different things. Some people would laugh at him and point. Others would cover their noses because they thought he smelled bad. Some would cross to the other side of the road so they would not have to walk near him. "Look at that dirty man again," one young boy said loudly as the man rolled by. "Why doesn't he go somewhere else?" "He probably smells terrible," a woman whispered to her friend. "I hope he doesn't come near us." "Maybe he is crazy," another person said. "Crazy people always look like that." But Doris never looked away when she saw the man coming. She never laughed at him or said mean things about him. Instead, she gave him a name. She called him Papa Alex. One particularly hot afternoon, the sun was shining so brightly that it felt like fire in the sky. Doris had just finished serving lunch to some customers when she saw Papa Alex rolling slowly toward her shop in his squeaky wheelchair. "You are here again, Papa Alex," Doris said gently as he stopped near her table. "But I noticed you did not come yesterday. Are you feeling okay?" Papa Alex looked down at his hands and spoke very quietly. "I was too weak to come yesterday," he said. "I have not eaten anything in 2 days. I tried to find food, but nobody would give me any." Doris looked at her table. She had cooked a lot of food that morning, but now there was only one plate left. It was a plate of beans and yam that she had been saving for herself to eat later. She had been working hard all day and was very hungry. Her stomach was making noise, and she was looking forward to eating that food. She picked up the plate and looked at it. Then she looked at Papa Alex, who was sitting quietly in his wheelchair with his head down. She could see that he was very thin and weak. She could tell that he really had not eaten in a long time. Without saying a word, Doris walked over to Papa Alex and placed the plate of food in front of him. "Here, Papa Alex," she said with a smile. "Eat this food. You need it more than I do." Papa Alex looked up at her with surprise in his eyes. "Are you giving me your last plate of food again?" he asked. "But what will you eat?" "Don't worry about me," Doris replied. "I can cook more food when I go home tonight. But you are hungry right now, and that is more important." Papa Alex's hands were shaking as he picked up the spoon. His eyes became wet with tears, but he did not cry. He just bowed his head and began to eat very slowly, like he wanted to make the food last as long as possible. While Papa Alex was eating, other people walking by stopped to watch. They could not understand why Doris was giving food to a beggar. "Doris, why do you always feed that beggar?" asked a woman who was passing by. "He probably has money hidden somewhere. Beggars are always lying about how poor they are." Doris looked at the woman and replied calmly, "If I was the one sitting in that wheelchair, hungry and alone, wouldn't I want someone to help me too? We should treat other people the way we would want to be treated." From that day on, Papa Alex came to Doris's food shop every single day. But he was not like other beggars that people sometimes saw on the street. He never called out to people asking for money. He never stretched out his hands to beg. He never followed people around asking them to help him. Instead, Papa Alex would just sit quietly in his wheelchair next to Doris's food shop. He would keep his head down and his hands resting on his legs. His wheelchair looked like it was about to fall apart. One of the wheels leaned to one side, and the seat had holes in it. But he never complained about anything. While other people ignored Papa Alex or pretended not to see him, Doris always made sure he had something to eat. Sometimes she would give him a plate of rice with vegetables. Sometimes it would be beans and yam. Sometimes she would even add a small piece of meat or fish if she had any. She always served him the food with a big smile and kind words. "Papa Alex, your food is ready," she would say gently. "I made it extra special for you today." One afternoon, after Doris had just finished serving jollof rice to 2 schoolchildren, she looked over and saw Papa Alex sitting in his usual spot. His bandages looked even dirtier than before, and his shirt had new holes in it. But he was sitting there patiently, not asking for anything, just waiting quietly. Doris scooped some hot jollof rice into a plate and added 2 small pieces of chicken. She walked over to Papa Alex and knelt down beside his wheelchair. "Papa Alex," she said softly, "your food is ready. I hope you like jollof rice." Papa Alex looked up slowly. His eyes were still tired, but when he saw Doris, they became warmer and kinder. "You always remember me," he said in a quiet voice. "Even when other people pretend I don't exist, you always remember that I am here." Doris placed the plate of food gently on a small stool next to his wheelchair. "Even if the whole world forgets about you, Papa Alex," she said, I will never forget you. Everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and respect." Just as Papa Alex was about to start eating his food, something unexpected happened. A big black car came driving down the road and stopped right in front of Doris's food shop. The car was very shiny and expensive looking, the kind of car that only rich people could afford. The door of the car opened slowly, and a tall man stepped out. He was wearing a clean white shirt that looked like it had just been ironed, and dark pants that had no wrinkles. His shoes were so shiny that they looked like mirrors. He was tall and strong, with serious eyes that seemed to notice everything around him. Doris quickly stood up and wiped her hands on her apron. She was not used to having rich customers at her small food shop. "Good afternoon, sir," she said politely. "Welcome to my food shop. How can I help you?" "Good afternoon," the man replied. But Doris noticed something strange. The man was not looking at her at all. Instead, he was staring directly at Papa Alex, who was still sitting in his wheelchair with the plate of food. The man did not blink or look away. He just kept staring at Papa Alex for a very long time, like he was trying to remember something important. Papa Alex had been about to take a bite of his food, but when he noticed the man staring at him, he stopped chewing and became very still. The rich man took a step closer to Papa Alex and tilted his head to one side, like he was studying him very carefully. Then he turned back to Doris. "Please, give me 1 plate of jollof rice," he said, "and add some meat to it." Doris quickly prepared the food and handed it to the man. As he took the plate from her hands, he looked back at Papa Alex one more time. This time, his eyes looked confused and uncertain, like he was not sure about something. Without saying another word, the man got back into his car and drove away, leaving Doris and Papa Alex wondering who he was and why he had been staring so intensely. The next morning, Doris woke up early as usual. She swept the area in front of her food shop and cleaned her wooden table, just like she did every day. She lit her stove and began cooking rice and beans for her customers. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Doris kept looking down the road, waiting to hear the familiar sound of Papa Alex's squeaky wheelchair. "Any moment now," she whispered to herself, "Papa Alex will come rolling down the road like he always does." But hours passed, and there was no sign of Papa Alex. By noon, Doris began to feel worried. Papa Alex had never missed a day before. Even when it was raining heavily, even when he was feeling sick, he always came to her food shop. Doris walked to the corner of her shop and looked down both ends of the street, hoping to see Papa Alex coming from a different direction. But the road was empty. Where could he be? She asked herself. She decided to ask other people if they had seen Papa Alex. First, she went to Mama Ruth, who was selling vegetables nearby. "Mama Ruth," Doris said, "have you seen Papa Alex today? The old man who sits by my shop in the wheelchair?" Mama Ruth laughed and waved her hand dismissively. "That dirty old man? Maybe he crawled away to another street to beg. He doesn't have legs anyway, so maybe he found a better place to sit." Doris did not think Mama Ruth's answer was funny. She was genuinely worried about Papa Alex. Next, she asked 2 young boys who sold bags of water nearby. "Have you boys seen the old man in the wheelchair today? The one who usually sits by my food shop?" The boys shook their heads. "No, we haven't seen him," one of them said. "Maybe he went somewhere else." Doris even asked the motorcycle taxi driver who usually parked near her shop. "Sir, did you see Papa Alex this morning? The man in the wheelchair?" The motorcycle man spat on the ground and shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe he got tired of sitting in the same place every day. Or maybe he died. Old beggars die all the time." Doris felt her chest become heavy with worry. She went back to her food shop and sat down beside her pot of rice. She stared at the empty spot where Papa Alex always sat, and her eyes did not leave that space for a long time. 2 more days passed, and still there was no sign of Papa Alex. Doris could not smile like she used to. When customers came to buy food, she served them, but her face looked sad and distracted. She could barely eat anything herself. Even the smell of her delicious jollof rice, which usually made her happy, now made her feel sick to her stomach. Her thoughts kept running back to Papa Alex. Did something bad happen to him? She would ask herself quietly. Is he hurt somewhere? Is he hungry? Does he have a place to sleep? At night, Doris would sit alone in her small room behind the food shop. She would hold the plate that she had last served Papa Alex with and look at it sadly. "Papa Alex never misses a day," she said to herself. Even when it rains hard, even when he is feeling sick, he always comes to eat. So why hasn't he come now? She stood up and opened the small window in her room, looking out into the dark street. A cold breeze came into the room, and her eyes began to fill with tears. Doris was not just worried anymore. She was scared. Something felt very wrong. Deep inside her heart, she knew that Papa Alex was not just missing. Something had happened to him. Something big and possibly dangerous. It was the 4th day since Papa Alex had disappeared. Doris was sitting quietly in her food shop, slicing onions and preparing her table like she did every morning. Smoke was rising from her fire as she boiled water for the rice. Suddenly, a black car stopped right in front of her shop. It was not the same car that had come before, but it was also expensive looking. A tall man got out of the car. He was wearing a bright red cap on his head, and his shoes were very shiny. His clothes looked expensive, like they had cost a lot of money. Doris had never seen this man before. He did not smile when he saw her. He did not say, "Good morning," or "Hello." He just walked straight up to her table and handed her a brown envelope. Doris looked at the envelope with confusion. "What is this?" she asked, holding the envelope carefully with both hands. The man did not answer her question. He just said in a serious voice, "Read what is inside, and don't tell anyone about it." Then he turned around, walked back to the car, and drove away. Before Doris could ask any more questions, the car was gone. She looked around to see if anyone else had been watching, but the street was quiet. With shaking hands, she opened the brown envelope. Inside was a single white piece of paper. She unfolded the paper slowly and carefully. There were only a few words written on it, in neat handwriting. "Come to Caribbean Hotel at 4 p.m. today. Don't tell anyone." From a friend. Doris stood completely still. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Her hands began to shake as she read the message again. "Caribbean Hotel," she said softly to herself. "But I have never been to a hotel before in my life." She looked at the paper again, trying to understand what was happening. Her heart was beating very fast. Who had sent this message? What kind of friend would ask her to come to an expensive hotel? And why did they want her to keep it secret? She looked down the road where the car had disappeared, then looked at the paper again. Doris held the envelope against her chest and looked up at the cloudy sky. She did not understand what was happening, but she knew one thing for sure. She had to go to that hotel. At exactly 3:30 in the afternoon, Doris stood in front of her small food shop. She looked at the lock in her hand and took a deep breath. She had decided to close her shop early so she could go to the hotel. She closed the wooden door of her shop and turned the key twice to make sure it was locked securely. "God, please go with me and protect me," she whispered quietly. "I don't know what is waiting for me, but please keep me safe." She walked to the main road and stopped a tricycle taxi. "Caribbean Hotel, please," she told the driver. As they drove through the busy streets of Texas, Doris held the brown envelope tightly in her hand. Her heart was beating fast, and her mind was full of questions. She did not know who had sent the letter. She did not know what would happen when she got to the hotel, but something deep inside her told her that this was not going to be an ordinary day. After about 20 minutes, they reached the hotel. When Doris looked up at the building, her mouth fell open in amazement. The hotel was very tall, with big windows that looked like they were made of glass. The walls were clean and white, and the front door was huge and shiny. Everything about the hotel looked expensive and fancy. Doris had never seen such beautiful building in her entire life. She felt like she was in a dream. 2 security guards were standing by the gate. One of them was wearing dark sunglasses, even though the sun was not very bright. When he saw Doris getting out of the tricycle, he walked toward her. "Good afternoon, madam," the security guard said politely. "Who are you here to see?" Doris opened her mouth slowly, feeling nervous. I got this letter," she said, showing him the piece of paper. "It says I should come here at 4 o'clock. My name is Doris." The security guard took the paper and read it carefully. Then he smiled and nodded his head. "Oh yes, Doris," he said. "Someone has been waiting for you inside. You can go in." Immediately, another man came out from the glass doors of the hotel. He was wearing a black suit and looked very professional. "Come with me, please." The man in the black suit said to Doris. He did not say much else, but he began walking back toward the hotel entrance. Doris followed him, even though her legs felt weak with nervousness. She had never been inside such a fancy place before. The man in the black suit led her through a long hallway with beautiful decorations on the walls. Then he stopped in front of a tall brown door. He turned to Doris and said, "Someone is waiting for you inside this room." Doris's heart began to beat even faster. She looked at the door, then looked back at the man. "Can I go in now?" she asked nervously. The man nodded. "Yes, you can go in. Don't worry. You are safe here." Doris took one deep breath to calm herself. Then she pushed the door open slowly. When Doris opened the door and looked inside the room, her eyes went straight to a man sitting in a wheelchair in the middle of the room. She stopped moving completely. Her mouth opened wide, and her hands began to shake. "Papa Alex," she said, putting her hand over her heart. But this man did not look like the poor, dirty beggar who used to sit beside her food shop every day. His hair was neat and clean, combed perfectly. His face was fresh and clean with no dust or dirt. He was wearing a beautiful white shirt with shiny gold buttons. On his wrist was an expensive watch that sparkled in the light. He was still sitting in a wheelchair, but this wheelchair was completely different from the old, broken one he used to have. This one was clean and polished, and it looked new and expensive. The man did not look weak or tired like Papa Alex used to look. Instead, he looked calm, strong, and powerful. When he saw Doris, he gave her a slow, gentle smile. "Doris," he said in a soft voice, "please come in." Doris could not move at first. Her heart was beating so fast that she could hear it in her ears. She looked at the man again, trying to understand what she was seeing. "Papa Alex," she said calmly, "is this really you?" The man looked directly into her eyes. "Yes, Doris, it is me." He pointed to a comfortable chair across from him. "Please sit down," he said kindly. Doris walked slowly to the chair and sat down, still staring at him like she was in a dream. "My name is not really Papa Alex," the man said gently. Doris blinked several times. "It's not?" He shook his head. "My real name is Chief Alexander, but most people call me Chief Alex. I am a billionaire." Doris put both of her hands on her lap and stared at him in complete shock. "A billionaire?" she asked in a very quiet voice. Chief Alex nodded. "Yes, Doris. I own many companies. I have built houses, schools, hospitals, and shopping centers. Over the years, I have made more money than I could ever spend in one lifetime." Doris looked completely confused. But why did you pretend to be poor? Why did you sit in that old wheelchair and dress in torn clothes? Why did you let people think you were a beggar?" Chief Alex smiled again, but this time his eyes looked very serious. "I wanted to see the real hearts of people," he explained. "I got tired of people being nice to me, only because they knew I was rich. I got tired of people helping me only when they thought other people were watching. I wanted to meet someone who would help me just because it was the right thing to do, not because they wanted something from me." Doris's eyes began to fill with tears as she listened to his words. "You gave me food every day," Chief Alex continued. "You gave it to me with joy and kindness. You never asked me for money. You never asked me where I came from or what I could give you in return. You never laughed at me or treated me badly. You never walked away when you saw me coming." He looked at her with great kindness in his eyes. "That is why you are here today, Doris. Every year, I choose 10 people who show true kindness to others, even when they think no one is watching. I help these people become wealthy so that they can help other people too." Doris was still trying to understand everything that Chief Alex had told her. Her mind was spinning with all the information, and she felt like she was in a dream that she might wake up from at any moment. Chief Alex looked at her with a small smile on his face. Then, very slowly, he placed both of his hands on the arms of his wheelchair. Doris leaned forward, watching him carefully. And then, to her complete amazement, Chief Alex stood up from the wheelchair. He stood up tall and strong, with no difficulty at all. Doris's eyes opened so wide that they felt like they might fall out of her head. Her mouth fell open, and she could not speak for several seconds. You can walk?" she finally asked in shock. Chief Alex nodded. "Yes, Doris, I can walk perfectly well." Doris leaned back in her chair, still looking at him like she had seen a ghost. But why did you sit in a wheelchair all this time? Why did you pretend that your legs didn't work? Chief Alex looked directly into her eyes and replied, I wanted to see if anyone would still care about me even when I looked broken and helpless. I wanted to know who had a truly good heart, someone who would help a person who seemed to have nothing to offer in return. Doris's lips began to shake, and her eyes became full of tears. One tear rolled down her cheek. I didn't help you because I wanted anything from you, she said in a quiet voice. I didn't know you were rich. I had no idea you were testing me. I just felt that it was the right thing to do. I thought about how I would want someone to treat me if I was in your situation. Chief Alex smiled again and walked closer to her chair. That's exactly why I chose you, Doris, he said. Your heart is pure and good. You help people simply because you care about them, not because you expect to get something back. Chief Alex stood quietly for a moment, looking at Doris with kind and gentle eyes. Then he said, Doris, I want you to come with me. There is something very special that I want to show you. Doris looked up at him with surprise. Something to show me? Yes, Chief Alex said with a warm smile. I want to show you something wonderful. It is part of your reward for having such a good heart. People like you deserve to have good things in life. Doris stood up slowly from her chair. Okay, she said, her voice quiet but curious. Chief Alex walked to the door and opened it. Doris followed him out of the room. In the hallway, 2 men in black suits were already waiting for them. They nodded respectfully at Chief Alex and began walking behind them as they moved through the hotel. Doris looked around at everything, still feeling like she was in an amazing dream. When they walked outside the hotel, Doris's mouth opened wide in amazement. 5 big black SUVs were lined up in the parking area. The cars were so shiny that they looked like black mirrors. Beside each car stood a big, strong man in a black suit and dark sunglasses. Chief Alex walked straight to the first car. One of the men quickly opened the door for him. Doris stood still, completely shocked by what she was seeing. Chief Alex looked back at her and smiled. Come on, Doris, get in the car. She took a deep breath and slowly got into the car. As soon as the door closed behind them, all 5 cars started their engines at the same time. The convoy of 5 SUVs moved out of the hotel parking area like something from a movie. Doris sat quietly beside Chief Alex, her heart beating fast with excitement and curiosity. Where was he taking her? What was he going to show her? The cars drove slowly through the busy city of Texas. Doris sat looking out the window, watching people walking on the streets, shops with their doors open, and buses moving back and forth. But her mind was full of questions about where they were going. After about 30 minutes of driving, the cars turned onto a clean, quiet road. The buildings here looked new and expensive. They had glass walls, shining signs, and fresh paint everywhere. Then all the cars stopped. Chief Alex opened his door and stepped out. A guard quickly came around to open Doris's door as well. Come, Doris, Chief Alex said, smiling at her. When Doris got out of the car and looked around, her eyes stopped on something that made her feel like her heart had stopped beating. Right in front of her was a very big and beautiful building. It was not just a small food shop like the one she was used to. This was a huge, luxury restaurant, the kind of place where only very rich people would come to eat. The building stood alone, wide and tall, with glass windows that went from the bottom all the way to the top. The walls were white and smooth, looking like they were made from expensive marble. The doors had shiny gold handles on them. There were beautiful flowers planted at the entrance, making the whole place look like a palace. Doris had never seen anything so beautiful like that in her entire life. But what shocked her the most was the big sign above the entrance. In beautiful golden letters, it said, Doris's Place, Home of Sweet Meals. Doris took a step backward. She read the sign again to make sure her eyes were not playing tricks on her. Is this real? She asked in a very quiet voice. Chief Alex nodded gently. Yes, Doris. It's all yours. Mine? She whispered, barely able to believe what she was hearing. Chief Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a bunch of keys. He held them out toward Doris and pointed at the door of the restaurant. Go inside and look around, he said. Doris took the keys with shaking hands and walked slowly toward the door. She was so nervous that she could barely get the key into the lock. When she finally opened the door and stepped inside, what she saw made her cover her mouth with both hands. The floor was shining like a mirror. The chairs were big, soft, and comfortable, covered in beautiful fabric. The tables looked like they were made from glass and gold. There were lights hanging from the ceiling that looked like sparkling stars. The air inside smelled fresh and clean, like flowers. Everything was new and perfect. At the back of the restaurant, there was a huge kitchen. Inside the kitchen, Doris could see big gas stoves, clean pots and pans, large refrigerators, deep freezers, and even uniforms hanging on hooks for the workers who would cook and serve food. She turned around slowly to look at Chief Alex, and her eyes were completely full of tears. "You bought all of this for me?" she asked, her voice shaking with emotion. Chief Alex walked into the restaurant and stood beside her. "Yes, Doris," he said softly. "You fed me with your small amount of money when you had almost nothing for yourself. Now I want to give you a place where kings and queens will come to eat your delicious food. You will never have to suffer or worry about money again." Doris dropped to her knees right there on the shining floor. She covered her face with her hands and began to cry. But these were happy tears, tears of joy and gratitude. "I don't know what to say," she said through her tears. "I can't believe this is really happening." "You don't need to say anything," Chief Alex replied gently. "Your kindness has already said everything that needs to be said." From that day forward, Doris's life changed completely. She became the owner of the most beautiful and successful restaurant in Texas. It was nothing like her small roadside food shop anymore. This new place was magnificent. The floors were always shining and clean. The walls had beautiful lights that made everything look elegant and fancy. The chairs were soft and comfortable, covered in the finest fabric. Soft music played in the background, making people feel peaceful and relaxed as soon as they walked through the door. Doris did not have to cook the food anymore. She did not have to serve customers or wash dishes. Professional cooks, who had been trained in the best cooking schools, worked in the kitchen. They wore clean white coats and tall white hats, and they prepared the most delicious meals that anyone had ever tasted. Waiters and waitresses, dressed in fine uniforms, served the food to customers with big smiles on their faces. They were polite and respectful to everyone who came to eat. Doris had her own office on the second floor of the restaurant. Her name was painted in gold letters on the door. Doris, Office. Inside the office, there was a big picture of her hanging on the wall, and a beautiful wooden desk where she could sit and manage her business. Everyone who worked in the restaurant respected her and called her Madam Doris. Important people from all over Texas came to eat at her restaurant. Business people, government officials, and even famous celebrities would make reservations to taste her food. But even with all the money, comfort, and fame that she now had, Doris never forgot where she came from. She never forgot Papa Alex and how he had changed her life. And she never forgot the important lesson that kindness is the most powerful thing in the world. One morning, Doris was sitting in her beautiful office when her restaurant manager knocked on the door and came in. "Good morning, Madam Doris," the manager said respectfully. "The food truck is ready and waiting outside." Doris stood up from her desk and smiled. "Thank you. Let's go." Outside the restaurant, a big white van was parked and ready to go. On the side of the van, there were words that said, "Doris's Food Love, Feeding the Hungry." Doris had started helping people who had no food. Every week, her food truck went around the city. She gave free food to poor people who lived under bridges, waited near bus stops, and stayed around grocery stores. People came and stood in line with happy faces. Some people had no shoes on their feet. Some were young children. Some were old men. Doris walked to each person and gave them hot food. She said, "Eat well. People care about you." One of her helpers asked her quietly, "Ma'am, why do you do this?" Doris looked up slowly. She put her hand on her heart. "Someone was kind to me once, so now I want to be kind to others." The helper understood and nodded. As they watched the people eat and smile, the sun shone softly on Doris's face. She looked up at the sky and said quietly, "Thank you, Chief Alexander. Thank you for helping me." Then she walked back to her van and drove away to feed people on the next street. Her life had changed a lot, but her heart stayed good. This story teaches us something important. Being kind is never a waste. You might not have much money or things, But when you help people because you really care, good things will come back to you when you don't expect it. What did you learn from this story? Please write your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to read what you think. And guess what? I have another good story coming in a few days. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you'll know when the new story comes out. If you like this story, please click the like button and share it with your friends. Someone might need to hear this story. Thank you so much for reading. I really appreciate your time. See you in the next story.